Welcome to 100 Mile Drive, and today I have the best-selling car on the planet, and that is a 2023 Tesla Model Y all-wheel drive version. And you might be pre-ordering one right now on the website or already ordered one, and you have absolutely no idea how does this car feel to drive. Well, this is exactly what I say on my channel. Before you buy a car, sign that contract. You need to drive it for at least 50 to 100 miles on a city streets, highway, and canyon roads to be able to answer the biggest question I'm answering on this channel is how does it feel to drive? And I'm gonna drive this Model Y on these 3 different terrains, and at the end give it a feel score. Let's go. I already made 3 Model 3 videos on my channel. You can go ahead and watch those. In this Model Y review, I'm gonna reference Model 3 quite a bit because they kind of share the same DNA. Well, Model 3 is a sedan. This is a crossover, which is like a bigger Model 3, but you kind of want to know what is the biggest difference in terms of how they feel to drive. All right, and first let's do a 30-second walk around of this car. It's pretty familiar to us already at this point. We see it here, especially in California, pretty much everywhere. Now, one thing I wanted to touch base on the exterior quality of this car. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty pleased to report that for this 2023 model, I didn't find any like major misalignments or panel gaps or all these things that people report on like a YouTube. Overall, I think the build quality has improved quite a bit. So this car looks on par with all the other cars. This is what the rear looks like, literally like a bigger version of the Model 3. One thing, this car rides on 255 wide tires, front and rear. The Model 3 Performance on 275s. These are kind of wider tires, which I kind of like. And I'm going to talk about their stability, especially on the canyon road. Now let's quickly do a door sound check. I'm not a fan of this kind of grab handles, but it's a heavy door, by the way. All right, it's a very heavy door actually, and this is what it sounds like. Kind of like it, looks safe. All right, now let's get on the inside. All right, now getting on the inside, close the door. It's pretty good, solid. So here I just want to touch base on the interior quality more than anything else. It's pretty familiar interior. I kind of like this large, the glass panel. Looks pretty cool. Feels like you're sitting in like a fish tank, kind of. But otherwise, it looks like a Model 3. It's a very nice steering wheel. So as far as the interior quality, I mean, these materials are kind of, they feel a little bit soft. They don't look super duper quality materials, but they look nice. The seats are pretty comfortable. They're kind of cushioned pretty well, actually. I think many people already noticed that the Model 3, Model Y seats look nice. Now these materials look also kind of nice overall. I mean, they don't look like a high-end quality materials, but they don't look bad. The best is this Alcantara. I think this looks nice. It's a good addition. Overall, everything is nicely molded. I'll discuss those lower panels. Yeah, this is the best material here. I love this. This looks okay. So nothing creaks, nothing rattles. I mean, this car only has 5,000 miles on it, but everything looks pretty sturdy. This is my first experience with Model Y. I know like Model 3s had a lot of issues with interior quality, but they have improved significantly. Now my only complaint is, like I already mentioned in Model 3, is this. You can see how you can squeeze this. I think this should be a little bit sturdier. Like this whole plastic should be a little thicker, I think, and better, like scratch resistant. Otherwise, quality looks much better, much better than before. I'm comparing to like a Model 3 mostly. All right, now let's go ahead and drive it. First, I'm gonna drive Tesla Model Y in the city. So I'm gonna put the car in a regular, let's see, standard mode, and steering, we're gonna leave it in comfort. All right, I'm in drive, and let's go. Let's floor it. And honestly, I can't even properly floor it because it is fast. This car has 0 to 60 like 4.4, 4.7 seconds. It depends who reviews it, but it's very fast. I mean, it's faster than most people probably even need. These electric cars, especially Teslas, are really no joke, especially the dual motor ones. So acceleration is absolutely no problem in this car. We're gonna hit the stop sign right here and just do one more very quick lunge. Okay, stopping, and let's go. Ooh, yeah. So one thing, let's say different Model Y versus Model 3, and that Model Y delivers that initial power a little bit more a little bit more gradual. Like Model 3 just kind of jerky fast. It just jerks in. It is super fast, especially the performance model. Now it kind of throws you back so much that you're like, whoa, this is like too much. Not for most people, I would say. So Model Y does it a little bit nicer in that way. Maybe because, you know, a lot of families obviously buying these cars and driving them, so the power delivery is slightly different here. One more stop, and then let's do one more quick acceleration. Let's go. Yeah, but it is fast. It is really fast. The other thing I want to address is brakes. Brakes are pretty good in this car. Obviously, we have a regenerative brakes here. Now, my Model Y, again, I think doesn't have the latest software updates because I don't have here an option to adjust regenerative braking. Yeah, I can only adjust stopping mode, but there should be in the latest update an option where I can reduce the regeneration. Not something most people want to do driving EV, but I wanted to kind of show it to my wife because she wants to experience the EV, you know, that drives like a normal car. But unfortunately this car doesn't have that option. So the brakes overall are not bad here. They're pretty strong overall. They're a little bit delayed when you put them to the stress, and that's what I'm gonna do driving it on the canyon roads. We're gonna kind of discuss how this car will behave if you put it through, you know, a little bit of dangerous situation. If somebody breaks in front of you, somebody does something and you have to overtake or brake quickly, we will discuss that. The next thing I want to talk about steering in this car. Now, steering in Model Y is surprisingly in comfort mode slightly heavier than in Model 3. I mean, I don't know if you guys have Model 3 and Model Y. You can comment on this. I drove Model 3 a few weeks ago, and I think in comfort mode it was slightly lighter. Here it feels a little heavier, but by no means it's, you know, not comfortable. It is comfortable, and honestly, I would drive it in comfort mode most of the time. So steering is also quick and direct. Not as quick and direct in Model 3. Model 3 steering is just super fast. I mean, I was in love with that steering. Here it's a little bit toned down because it's a crossover platform, but nevertheless it is still fast. The steering is still fast, and how fast we're going to discuss again on the twisty roads when we put this car through some corners. So steering feel is pretty good. I like it. Next I want to talk about suspension in this car. Now, suspension in Model Y is not something I expected. This is exactly why I say, guys, rent this car for a day or any car you're planning to buy, because these are the things that are not gonna come up in your test drive. I know Tesla does test drives, especially in like a malls. They even do some extensive test drives where they take you, you know, on the freeway, this and that. But if you're in the area with good roads, you're never gonna actually experience the suspension in this car. Now, I thought this car will be a little bit softer, I would say. Suspension in Model Y is on the firmer side. It is still comfortable. There's still a nice damping, but it's still firmer. Like it basically reads all imperfections on the road and responds to it. It does pretty good damping. My only complaint, I would say a major complaint, is the way the acoustics inside the car, maybe because of the glass roof. All the things that it hits, all the impacts, you kind of hear them in your cabin. Usually the sound should be killed at the, you know, lower level of the car, but in Model 3 I also heard that, but not as much as in Model Y. So when you hit, you know, potholes or imperfections in the road, it feels almost like in a train, you know, when you're riding a train and you know, in between the tracks it hits those things, the joints, and it does this. So you hear that in Model Y. It feels like there needs to be a better internal insulation in the cabin to kind of suppress that sound coming from the tires from that impact. Otherwise, overall damping is pretty good. So let me go ahead and drive it on the actual bumpy roads to discuss more how shocks work in this car. Alright, and now driving on the bumpy road, my favorite, Tampa Avenue, just to kind of experience the damping in this car. Now, one thing, I have some creaking going on from my from my back seats. I have So the damping of suspension overall is pretty nice. Like, it does have a little bit of gliding motion over the bumps, so they're not transferred to the cabin, as you know, like you don't feel bad overall. So the damping is pretty good on Model Y. It is smoother, a little bit more cushion than the Model 3, but nevertheless this car is on the firmer side. Like, I was thinking how to describe it best, and I'll call it firm, comfortable. Like, it's a firm car, but still fairly comfortable. The biggest issue, like I mentioned, is the acoustics inside the car. You know, it feels like in those like open theaters and, you know, summer theaters, when you say something, you have a little bit, your voice is a little bit amplified. So that's why all the sound that comes inside the cabin is kind of amplified. And part of that, the impact that you get from the road, from hitting those bumps, potholes, whatever, it's amplified inside the cabin. And I think that is something that takes it away from the premium feel. Like, this car doesn't feel as premium because of that. But nevertheless, it's not a downer, but it's something I hope gets addressed by Tesla in the future releases. Now let me go ahead and, you know, drive in these local neighborhoods to see what it feels like, you know, driving this car in day to day. Overall, it's very easy to drive this car. You know, it's a very instant acceleration, overall good brakes, very quick steering, so you are able to maneuver very quickly, whether you are, you know, grocery shopping, you know, picking up kids. All the motions in this car are just fast, and this is one reason people like Teslas, because everything it does is easy and fast. And then whatever you do, you throw it inside the street, you know, it just nice. And then regenerative braking, this one pedal driving, once you get used to it, you probably don't want to drive, you know, a regular car after that. So overall, very easy to drive this car. Whatever it is, very easy. So let me take this corner. I'm gonna again show steering. Now overall, this car feels safe. One thing I must say, this car does feel safe. The way even it responds to steering, I mean, look at this. There's no excessive body motions. The car is like kind of planted, very well planted. I mean, it's heavy, it's 4,400 pounds, around that much, but nevertheless, this battery and then 2 electric motors, they're really positioned well, and the design of this car takes advantage of that. Basically what I'm trying to say, that despite it's being heavy, it's wide enough, very low center of gravity, wide enough tires, and all that, you can feel it driving this car, that it provides that safety. It provides safety, it brakes overall very comfortably in one line, there's no dancing around. The chassis is very stable. I mean, I'm pretty pleased to report that the chassis is stable no matter pretty much what you do. And I'm gonna go ahead and drive it right now on the highway to discuss what does it feel like taking this car on a long trip. And now I'm merging a highway to see how does it feel like driving the Model Y on the highway, especially if you want to go long distance. All right, I mean, I know, especially here in California, a lot of people drive to Bay Area, like San Francisco from LA, and there are lots of superchargers here that, you know, you can use. One problem though I find with superchargers, and this is the second Tesla I'm getting recently, all of them are full. It's like you have to wait in line sometimes to get in to a supercharger. And one today I tried, it actually was not working. It was not in service. All right, so the first thing we want to discuss really quickly is the sound insulation in this car. And I must say it's a little better than the Model 3 overall, the sound insulation. Like, you don't hear much what's going on around you. You hear, but not as much. So I think it's a pretty good job in terms of sound insulation. Now I'm gonna go ahead and measure with my meter. Let's go at, all right, autopilot on, we're set to 66. How handy autopilot here. And then we're gonna measure just to see what the sound insulation is like. Wow, it's pretty good. 66. very similar to everything I test on the channel, but overall it's not bad. Like I said, the only issue I see is only if you hit some kind of bumpy roads, then you hear more in the cabin. Also, my Tesla Model Y has some kind of creaking noise coming from the rear seats. I try to readjust them, but it didn't work. So probably something that needs to be looked at by the Tesla service. They kind of, especially if you hit a lot of bumpy roads, you'll hear it a lot. These roads are pretty nice here. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, how comfortable it is. Well, it's super comfortable. I mean, you have nice plush seats in this cabin. You can, of course, use the autopilot, and you can just cruise along. I mean, the Model Y is even more comfortable than the Model 3, with a little bit roomy space, and it's better cushioned than the Model 3 in terms of like tires and suspension. The next test I usually like to do is how easy it is to overtake the cars, and it is very easy, of course, on the Model Y dual motor. I don't even think I need to demonstrate that, because this car just picks up really fast. I mean, this car just takes off instantly. That's one thing I like about electric cars, their instant torque. Now, I want to quickly address how this car is different than, let's say, Kia EV6 that I recently brought on this channel. Kia EV6 will feel more car-like. I like to say that. It's a bit more cushioned, similar sound insulation, I'll say, maybe a little bit better, but it feels smoother, it feels softer, feels like Toyota, kind of like. This car reads the road more, this car reacts to imperfections more, so this car is a better driver's car, I would say, than the Kia EV6, and especially I'll discuss that on the canyon roads. Alright, so let me go ahead and take it on the twisty roads, and we're going to go ahead and discuss Tesla's safety, and you know, what happens to this Model Y if we were to put this a little bit under stress. Why on the twisty roads? Alright, let's hit it. Alright, so now we're going to see basically how safe is it to drive Tesla Model Y overall, how well it'll behave, let's say, in dangerous situations. That's all these things you can see in the canyon roads. Actually, let me go ahead and change the steering to sport. Yep, there you go. All right, getting through the corner, not going crazy fast, of course, but just, you know, a little bit faster to see. One thing, this car has really good direct steering. I mean, I love the steering. Even in the crossover, it's so direct that you can literally point it into the corners and the car will follow. Now, the biggest question is the chassis, right? How well the chassis responds. And I must say, I am impressed again. Now, the Model 3, of course, stays lower and more planted. It feels even more exciting, but even this crossover, I mean, look at this. I mean, it stays really well planted. So that tells me if somebody brakes in front of me, this car will hold really well. I mean, it will basically take over the car in front of you. If you have to weave the car, you know, really fast, it's not gonna lose control for sure. Now, I cannot go fast enough here on the road to kind of see, you know, what happens if you take it a little bit faster than you should be. I did experience it a little bit yesterday. Basically, it'll just slide. So it's predictable chassis. It doesn't dance. It doesn't have any shaky, unwanted moves. It is very planted. And in case if you carrying too much speed in the corner or you have to overtake, it'll just slide. So these 255 wide tires really help this Model Y to basically be grippy, to carry through the corners really well. Yeah. So this car is not just, you know, a car to carry your family around. You can also have really fun with this car on the back roads, and this is quite amazing that this Model Y is so capable of doing that. So I can imagine the Model Y performance will be firmer, faster, and has 275 tires in the rear, so it'll be even grippier than this. Now let me find another area so we can discuss a little more. All right. Alright, here we are. Another area to experience Model Y on the twisty roads. So Tesla pretty much tells me that they build safe cars, you know, the cars that are stable, very well planned. They really take advantage of these batteries to create that low center of gravity, and the fact that they keep motors on the front and rear axle, it makes the car very stable, very well balanced. There's a good balance in the chassis, so even at the faster speeds, the car responds really well. It's very predictable, paired with really good steering. Now, one thing I didn't mention is the brakes. Now, brakes are okay, but of course, if you have to brake quite a bit and fast, they have a little delay because they're regenerative. Also, I think the Model Y Performers will have better brakes. I don't know if you guys want me to test the Model Y Performers as well and talk about it. Let me know. As per me, as from what I've been reading, I think it's not going to be too much different, but I don't know. I can test that as well. But even this regular Model Y, I mean, probably this is all you need. You can just put better tires on this car, maybe a little bit bigger wheels, and it should be good to go. Slow down here. So you can have a lot of fun with this car. I mean, seriously, you can drop off your kids to like school, you know, and then just go hit some back roads and then just have fun. Really, it's amazing. And overall, the car hasn't slipped. It's driving, the car hasn't slipped. I would have to go really faster to experience this. So there was a little slip there, but overall, it's very predictable. And after spending time driving it here on the canyon roads, I can assure you that I understand this car much better now. I understand how it behaves. I understand the chassis control, the brakes, little downrange the brakes, I'll say. I would, if I could, I would upgrade brakes in this car. But overall, you're not gonna drive it aggressively, right? If you're planning to drive aggressively, just get the Model Y Performance. Especially now, there's only $4,000 difference between the two trims, so it's very easy decision making. But otherwise, pretty pleased driving this car on the canyon roads. Got a lot of data from this. Now let me go ahead and summarize. And I just completed driving Tesla Model Y in the city streets, highway, and canyon roads. And I must say I'm pretty pleased after spending pretty much 2 days with this car to say that this is pretty much like a driver's car. It does everything pretty well for a crossover. So this car really favors a driver and its passengers, meaning you can literally, you know, have your family in this car, take it on the long trips. You can do your, you know, run the errands around the city, or you can take it even in the back roads and just have fun with it, just like I did on the twisty roads. And also, I wanted to say that this car does feel safe and predictable. This is the important thing to note, that driving this car, and if you hit any dangerous situations, this car will do everything well. It will do everything safe, and I'm pretty happy about that. So overall, I like this Tesla Model Y. Let me know if you want me to drive Model Y Performance as well, or any other Teslas. I'll be happy to bring them on the channel. Otherwise, my final feel score for this Model Y all-wheel drive is 8 out of 10. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with this car, and talk to you soon.